dictators can be beaten, and no country on earth has put an end to more dictatorships than America.
Yeah, we're not indulging this fairy tale anymore. America has not been charitably serving humanity by removing dictatorships. What America has been doing is toppling regimes that don't serve American economic interests and replacing them with regimes that do serve American economic interests. Often toppling democratically elected regimes and replacing them with dictatorships, like you did with the Congo's democratically elected Patrice Lumumba. Now, Lumumba's crime was basically daring to make an agreement with Soviet Russia to help him remove Belgian colonial troops that were illegally refusing to leave the Congo. Now, he did ask for America's assistance with this first, but they declined, presumably because they deemed the presence of Belgian troops in the Congo to be either beneficial or at least not harmful to American economic interests. But Soviet Russia was America's #1 obstacle to achieve total global economic supremacy, so anything that had to do with them was bad for American economic interests. So this was enough for the CIA to initiate their most expensive operation ever at the time in order to instigate a violent military coup in the DRC. They financed anti-Lumumba propaganda, they bribed politicians, officials, and powerful people. It created a destabilized, chaotic environment that eventually led to the death of Patrice Lumumba, as well as a lot of other people, allowed President Mobutu to seize power. Now, he was transparently a corrupt dictator. However, he was corrupt in the way where he was willing to sacrifice the well-being of his own people in order to benefit Western economic interests, and obviously his own economic interests. So he was propped up and financially supported, allowing him to stay in power until he died after about 30 years. He did it with Suharto in Indonesia, who killed like 1 million people, a genocide that the American government denied was even happening and said it was just Russian propaganda. Now, killing all those people removed all potential opposition that might stand between him and squeezing his country dry for cheap labor and resources to maximize profits for American corporations. And again, for himself, obviously. Now, the previous democratically elected communist government was completely willing to do trade with the American government, but not in a way that was quite so exploitative of their own people. So obviously, it was going to be a bit too expensive. So the US government essentially facilitated the murder of 1 million people for money and freedom. Something similar happened in Guatemala when the local government, attempting to raise the standard of living for their local farmers, ended up leading to increased taxes on wealthy landowners. Now, since the largest and wealthiest landowner of all just so happened to be the American United Fruit Company, this obviously wasn't very good for American economic interests. So the American government did their thing, spreading lies and propaganda, funding insurrectionists, and successfully toppling the democratically elected Guatemalan government. Now, this led to a violent civil war, which led to a military coup, which led to a double-crossing backstab within the military coup, but eventually General Euphrane Montt came into power. Now, despite the Americans' insistence that he was dedicated to true democracy, he was actually your generic run-of-the-mill violent dictator, killing hundreds of thousands of people in a genocide that specifically targeted the native Mayan population, which again the US government denied was actually happening, but since then declassified documents have made it very clear that the US government did in fact know exactly what was happening and very much didn't care, because that sweet seductive banana money served American economic interests. This is the origin of the term banana republic, right? Meaning fake democracy. This is what it's referring to. Now, the United Fruit Company is actually still around, but since then they merged with another company and became United Brands, and the banana branch of the company also had a rebrand of their own to try and clean up their image. Now, this is just a small handful out of literally dozens of examples. Obviously, I don't have time to name them all, but I'm sure people in the comments have named a few extra if you're interested. Now, I understand you've got a strongman authoritarian situation of your own brewing right now. And having a desire to push back against that is good and healthy. But what you should not be doing is leaning into a delusional propagandist home of the brave narrative that America was actually the good guy all along until this guy showed up and ruined everything. Look, we can do better now. Collectively, as a world, we have the infrastructure, we have the resources, we have the technology, we can communicate, we can learn from our past. But in order to do that, in order to make the world better, we have to start letting go of old fake stories that make us feel good in order to embrace real, tangible future progress.